wherever you get your podcasts. Also, thanks for joining us on SportsGrid. Jack McMullen, Aram Leighton. As always, we are presented to you by the fine folks at BetMGM. We're going to take this opportunity to give you an overarching look at the CS, the American League Championship Series, which is already underway when we're recording. The National League Championship Series, by the time you're watching this on SportsGrid, Game 1 will already be through, and we'll see Game 2 coming up later tonight. We also want to talk about the Detroit Tigers, their direction. They extended their manager, A.J. Hinch. Also some managerial changes and retention. Mike Shuldt retires as the Padres skipper, and Rob Thomson is retained by Philadelphia for 2026. It's fun to talk about, and we're going to go a little broad through the front half of this show as it pertains to the CS, because the game by game doesn't really make sense right now, because you'll be hearing this at, 3 different times. We already have a game under our belt on the AL side. We're watching game 2 happen right now. We just hit the record button immediately following the Julio Rodriguez 3-run homer. So what I really want to do is kind of walk through lineup, rotation, bullpen, where the advantages lie over the course of the CS. Does that sound good?
Yeah, I'm in. And it's funny because I think each team has kind of a totally different strength weakness combination that I think is going to make it really fun.
Yeah, I think so too. So I want to start with the lineups, and we'll go on the American League side first and then pivot to the NL side. We're watching the Blue Jays and the Seattle Mariners battle right now. And Seattle, they really got here, it seems like, over the last half decade by pitching. And over the last couple of years, we say, oh, they may have the best rotation in Major League Baseball. Their bullpen is one of the best in Major League Baseball. Can they get bats? Can they get bats? The answer is a resounding yes this year, and we've seen it from guys like Julio Rodriguez stepping up. Cal Raleigh, by the way, hit 60 homers, but it's the acquisitions. Jorge Polanco, they put faith in again going into 2025. It paid off at the end of the year, and boy, is it paying off in the postseason. Josh Naylor has been great for them. Gino Suarez has not, but they pushed the chips forward at the deadline to do that. Where do you feel like the strengths and weaknesses lie within Seattle's lineup?
I think Seattle is funny enough. Is like it's the one team where I think you look across the board, and I don't think there's one specific area where you really say, oh, that might be their utmost strength. But if anything, in the past we've always said it with the pitching, as you alluded to. But if anything, this year it feels like the offense in general is just the strength because of the length now that it has all of a sudden. Where I think in previous years, even when they were swinging it a little bit better through stretches, and even maybe before the deadline, like, okay, top half of the lineup's good, but is it going to be able to hold up, or is you going to see this, what we talk about with the Phillies, like this stark drop off after the top 5 hitters? And even with a struggling Gino, the fact that you can deploy a guy like him 6th in the lineup, a guy that can leave the yard in any given at bat, and when he's right, is one of the better power hitters in the game. At least he was this year. Like the fact that that's your 6th hitter, the fact that the bottom of the order is a proven, consistent JP Crawford and Victor Robles, who's turned himself into a decent piece. Like, I think it's the lineup length that they have now, and then to be able to still have that MVP candidate star power in Cal, you have that in Julio, but to have the Nailers of the world now, as well, as you alluded to, and then even like the lesser pieces in your lineup, just being solid back of the lineup, 8-9 hitter types that are better than most others. Like, I'm going to take a JP Crawford bat over Andres Jimenez's bat in the 9 hole, right? Like, I just think those are the things that really make this lineup tough, is they can beat you with the stars in the middle, especially with the way Julio's playing, but there's a lot of different hitters that you're still going to trust, I think, in a big spot.
So pivoting to the Toronto side, like what gets it close to a wash with Seattle? Because Seattle probably has the deeper lineup, and it feels weird to say, but the hottest bat going right now, maybe the best bat going in the postseason, is Vladimir Guerrero Jr.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that he struggled on Sunday in Game 1 of the ALCS, but he's still lined out at 107 to straightaway Central. Vladdy had 3 homers in that 4-game DS win over the Yankees. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. creates this top-heavy nature to the Blue Jays, but they also have some other great pieces in there. George Springer homered on the first pitch that he saw in the CS. Alejandro Kirk has been a reliable piece over the course of this year. There's a glaring omission in Bichette. Would you say Toronto's lineup is a bit more top-heavy, like more talent at the top, but thinner than Seattle's?
So it's funny, like, yes, but then I'd also hedge that with no because of the bench. So yes, in theory, but I think that's where it becomes interesting, and how Schneider can hedge that with the fact that they have such a unique bench. And I think they have the deepest bench of players that you actually are comfortable deploying. Whereas I think some of the Mariners players on the bench, like you're probably not even really putting those guys in. Like the guys that are in your lineup, like those are the guys that are in, whether it's a righty, lefty, like you're rolling with that matchup. Whereas the Nathan Lucas to Davis Schneider platoon, it maybe doesn't get as much love as possible or as it should, but you pinch hit Davis Schneider in the right spot, and that's a really exciting bat. I think you put Ernie Clement in certain situations, you feel good about that. So I think the way that they can deploy the bench can help add some length to that lineup because, maybe it's certain players that you wouldn't want in a left on left or certain matchup. But in that spot, that's a great spot to put Davis Schneider, maybe Miles Straw. You even feel good about his at-bats. And then the other thing is just the way that they never punch. I mean, it was interesting to see how they struggled in game one, right? Where the Blue Jays only score one run. They only struck out 4 times. How often do you see a team in today's game only score 1 run and strike out 4 times? I think that's something that ultimately will work back into their favor. It's not like the Mariners are the best defensive team in the world either. The fact that they can put the ball in play, so even your bottom of the order guys, they're not getting their doors blown off. They're maybe just rolling over or they're popping out or whatever. But I think that can at least help you a little bit when you're putting some pressure on the defense.
And it's not like Seattle has any supreme strikeout artists, especially in their rotation. Like Wu is their strikeout guy, but Kirby's going to pitch to contact. Bryce Miller is a guy that can rack up some strikeouts, I guess, but he didn't really do it in game one. Gilbert is the only guy that kind of scares you in terms of like, oh, he can K10 in this start. But you know what? We'll see how Gilbert's postseason unfolds. We'll talk about the rotations in the next segment. Pivoting to the National League side, the Dodger lineup, it's potent. It's littered with star power. Now, Ohtani, relatively speaking, struggled a little bit in the DS against Philly. Freddie Freeman was not this overwhelming fingerprints on every single game type presence. Mookie Betts, more the same. Teoscar Hernandez was the guy, and the complementary pieces were good for them. Alex Call was pesky against the Phillies in the DS. What do you make of this Dodger lineup?
I like the fact that they're utilizing Alex Call a little bit now, and those are the guys that I think you need to be a little bit more comfortable deploying because like the Dodgers lineups, it's great. Of course, you have the star power at the top, but there's a reason why you didn't see Conforto make the roster. I think there's a reason why they're prioritizing maybe the way that they can get a little bit more out of the bottom of the order. The scary part, and we'll talk about the pitching side, is like that they don't really need to hit too much. So you just want guys maybe towards the bottom, putting together quality at bats. But what I feel like with the Dodgers lineup is it can't be worse than it was last round, where they had like a 5-something OPS against the Phillies and still won comfortably. And that the Ohtanis and the Freemans and the Will Smiths, as he gets more healthy, are going to swing it better. Kike Hernandez is still doing his thing as a playoff performer. And so I just look at the lineup and I'm like, even with some of the no-shows, Pages has been frustrating, whatever it may be. I just still think that there's enough on the bottom to supplement the top, and the top didn't even do their job in the last round, and they were fine. And that the top of the lineup is going to do its job, if not in this round, in the World Series, if they get there.
It's a cliche, but 1 through 9, it feels like can burn you. And there's a reason Tommy Edman won NLCS MVP last year. Like there's a world where I'm not saying Alex Call or Justin Dean is going to win the NLCS MVP, but like, why can't Teoscar? Why can't Max Muncy? And then we're not even talking about Ohtani, Betts, and Freeman. We got about a minute here. I want you to highlight your favorite and least favorite parts of the Milwaukee Brewers lineup.
I mean, it's funny because I love what they do on the defensive side of things. And I just love the fact that so many different players can give you a quality at bat, and that's where I look at the bottom of this order. And like Jake Bauers had a big swing the other day, but Caleb Durbin gives you good ABs and has been playing great defense. I think it's just the well-roundedness, but I think what's really got me going and buying into this Brewers lineup is that we've seen William Contreras now ascend to like that star that he has been in the past. And then Yelich really kind of settling into the moment as well. And then Chourio being him. So I think the stars really rising to the occasion is huge because you knew the complementary pieces were going to complement. That's Brewers baseball.
Yeah, 100%. Now, if you had to ID, we've got about 30 seconds here, one thing that is a glaring weakness in the Brewer lineup, what is it? Is it their shortstop in Joey Ortiz?
Might be the shortstop. I may have said like, who's going to hit the home run in the big spot outside of, the usual suspects. But now you're seeing Vaughn with the big swings and you're seeing, again, Bowers with the big swing. But I would say just being able to leave the yard like at any given time. And I think if it's not a couple guys, you wonder that. But then Terang's a power hitter now. So I don't know. I don't know if I have a good answer.
Yep. We'll talk pitching in a moment on the Just Baseball Show.
Shedeur Sanders will be starting for the Browns by week 9. I am buying this. Absolutely. At a certain point, Joe Flacco just not the answer. We know they already made the change. Dylan Gabriel is starting this week. We know that. But maybe the team needs a quarterback, and they're willing to trade for Joe Flacco for some level of stability, and then we simply get nothing out of Dylan Gabriel. He is a rookie quarterback when it's all said and done. Maybe there's just no production from him. So why not just move on to a different rookie quarterback that you have just to see what you have? And then, as George, as you mentioned over the top, you have to evaluate going into next year's draft. So I will absolutely buy this.
The next 4 weeks, Minnesota, Pittsburgh, Miami, New England. I mean, the question is this. If they truly believe that Gabriel could be a future starter, you got to give him more than 4 weeks, right? That's 4 weeks is not enough. Minnesota, that's a rough game, all right, being played with England this week. Pittsburgh, they haven't have a defense. Miami is not very good. New England's supposed to have a good defense, hasn't here. I want to sort of go. I mean, I think Shedeur Sanders is going to start at some point this week. I don't think it's going to be by week 10, although that does make sense here to name him the starter during the bye week, get him 2 weeks here. I'm going to go more, maybe double digits, week 12, week 14, somewhere around there. Because I'm going to give Gabriel a longer run. I think Gabriel might do some damage here against these lesser defenses here. So I think give him a longer runway here. That being said, I do not think Gabriel is the long-term future of this team. I don't think he's a franchise quarterback at all here. I think he's a number 2 at best here. Sanders could be a number 1. I have doubts about him too. I think Sanders has a better shot. So by week 9, by week 10, I'll sell that. But if you would give me a couple more weeks, I would have bought it.
Fantasy Sports Today, Fridays starting at 3 p.m. Eastern, only on SportsGrid.
So we highlighted the lineups. Now I want to talk rotations, and we'll snake it back. So we stopped with the Brewer lineup, and I want to pick up with the Brewer rotation. It's not really a rotation right now. It's Freddie Peralta and friends. Aaron Ashby is the opener in Game 1 of the NLCS. I don't really love how Milwaukee is putting the rotation together. Now, the bullpen is a different conversation, and we'll hit on the bullpen quickly in the next segment, but I mean, this Brewer rotation scares me a little bit. And Quinn Priester is going to look for a bounce-back start in the CS after he was roughed up a bit in the DS, and he didn't even last more than an inning. Freddie Peralta needs to have a humongous start in Game 2. But what jumps out to me here is, like, all of a sudden the pitching depth has gone by the wayside for Milwaukee, and that's something that they were doing so well during the regular season.
It's like to the wayside, but like still accessible though, is kind of my devil's advocate there. Where like, it's not the traditional structure of, okay, starters here, relievers here, but the way that they have it set up here, really depending on how things are going and the workflow of how much guys have thrown in certain spots and, just manager deciding to deploy guys in certain spots, you can still get starter innings out of anybody, right? I mean, like it's short leash starter or longer leash reliever that's like a piggyback guy that you can deploy based on how the game flow goes, and you have a couple innings there to kind of dictate that. I think that's where it's interesting, and like at the end of the day, I think it's still an advantage to them, even though you don't have those clear cut 1, 2, 3 starters. That you have about 4 or 5 relievers, quote unquote, or guys that are just not going to be penciled into starters, but are available that can go 4 innings whenever you need. And that's kind of the leash that we have on a lot of these starters. Anyways, it's what the leash would be on these starters if they were pitching from the first inning onward. So why not push that back a little bit and let the game flow dictate how long of a leash you're going to have on a player instead of, hey, we're going right into it. I don't know how long the leash is going to go, and I'm going to have to react in real time while you're on the mound. Because, if you're up big early, then maybe you don't deploy Miz and you can save him for, the next game. Maybe that's where you go to Quintana and give him a longer leash. Like, I think that's where it becomes maybe a way of, when we look back on this postseason, thinking about how teams actually structure their pitching staffs for the playoffs.
Sure. So let me ask you about the long or the leash length conversation as it pertains to the LA Dodgers, because we're seeing the Dodgers actually reverse course as they get to October. Everybody else is cutting their starters a little bit shorter. The Dodgers are saying, hey, you know what, Blake Snell, you're going to give us 6 today. Hell, you might go into the 7th today. Yamamoto, like, we need 7 from you so we can get to our abbreviated bullpen. I was looking at this in the DS. in the National League Division Series, and keep in mind that was 4 games against the Philadelphia Phillies, they had 4 guys make more than 1 appearance out of the bullpen, right? They had some one-offs. Bonda threw an inning out of the bullpen. Glasnow appeared out of the bullpen before starting game 4. 4 guys made multiple appearances out of the bullpen. Emmett Sheehan, do you trust him with a 1-run lead? Do you trust him with a 2-run lead in the CS? Probably not, okay? Trinan, who really struggled in his 2 appearances. His 2 appearances spanned 3 outs. He got 3 outs across 2 outings. Then you had Vesia and Sasaki. And we're going to talk about the bullpen again in a minute, but the rotation, like they're relying on these guys to give them 6 every single night, 7 every single night. And this is the only team that can probably get away with that because they have 4 aces going. Yeah, they can go Snell game 1, Yamamoto game 2, Ohtani game 3, Glasnow game 4. You can absolutely pencil/pen all those guys in for 6 at least.
Yeah, it's funny. It's like a complete opposite situation, and you need to stretch everything you can out of those guys because it's the least we've trusted this Dodgers bullpen in a little bit. And the Sasaki wrinkle is absolutely huge, and we'll talk about that. But it's a complete opposite of the Brewers situation where you don't really have the liberty of saying, okay, if things don't go well with our opener or our starter, we have plan A, B, or C in the bullpen that we can use in 1 inning, 3 innings, 2 innings. It's not quite that way. Your best pitchers are in your rotation by a mile, and it's the traditional setup, but not as much with a lot of the teams today that we look at, especially if you're a mid-market team. But we see like with the Dodgers, a lot of expensive starters. The bullpen hasn't come together the way that they wanted it to, and so now they really need to ride those starters. And I think you try to get as much out of each of these guys as you can, and I think the leash is going to be really long because even if it's a situation where you think Snell might give up the run, I even forget the numbers. 3rd time through the lineup with the way Blake Snell's throwing the ball right now, I feel better about him. Even with Emmett Sheehan showing some signs of life, I'd rather Snell 3rd time through and just ride that stuff. So, and I think that's going to be the case with Ohtani, Yamamoto, Glasnow. As long as those guys are feeling okay, I think the real give and take here is going to be: do you feel better about lineup 3rd time through, seeing one of your star starters, or go into the bullpen? When you had elite relievers left and right, the answer can still be reliever. It's not as much the case here, and I think those guys really need to deliver it to the 7th a lot of these games.
The Blue Jays have probably the worst bullpen remaining. And again, we're going to talk about that. The rotation, I wonder what the level of reliance is on a Gausman who only went 76 pitches in game 1, a Yasavage who just allowed a 3-run homer to Julio Rodriguez the first, and a Shane Bieber who starts game 3. And Bieber has looked really sharp on the heels of Tommy John surgery, but he's still a couple months removed from his return from Tommy John surgery. So you have those big front 3 at the top of that Blue Jay rotation. I like them a lot, but if you go back to Seattle down 2-0, like that's really dangerous, and they need quality starts pretty much every single night.
Yeah. And I was surprised with how short the leash was with Bieber last time out. So I'm very interested to see how much longer it might be this time around. But I think Gausman, Yasavage, like you're trusting those guys right now, and you're getting as many innings as you can out of them. But I think what we're seeing though is also that the Jays are okay being a little bit quicker with the pull, and they're willing to go down with this bullpen. And I think some of it's workload management stuff. Like you're not going to push Savage 100+ pitches in general.
Right.
He's already thrown a ton this year, and they were careful with him to start the year. I don't think they ever envisioned him pitching for the big league team this late into the season going into this year, even being as excited about him as they were. It's their 1st-round pick. But I do think that they're willing to go down with the Lauers and the Fluhardys and the Varlins and the Rodriguezes of the world. And I mean, I guess you got to approach it that way. And we were talking about it before. Like these guys are all capable. A lot of them have good stuff. The bullpen in a macro statistically didn't perform that well over the course of the season, but bullpens can get hot, just like lineups can. We talked about the Rangers bullpen. A lot of those guys that got hot in that World Series run didn't really do much afterwards. And maybe this bullpen can just get hot. And a couple of these arms do look like they're pitching like they are feeling pretty good right now.
We've got about 20 seconds here. We know so much about the Mariner rotation. We know that it's very good. We know that they have 4 very serviceable arms. Brian Wu is back. He's on the roster. You've got 10 seconds here. Give me a good line for him in his start in the ALCS.
I think you need 6 out of him. I want 6 innings. 8 Ks.
Off the injury. All right. We're talking Penn in a moment on the Just Baseball Show.
At some point this year, next year, states are going to ask for Kalshi to be taxed. And I think they're going to have to pay taxes if they continue to operate in this space. Specifically, the state of Pennsylvania is looking and saying, hey, our sports books are paying us tax money every month to do the same thing you guys are doing.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
Question, where's the $100,000 going? Like, if I'm going to give it to Amari DiMercato as an apology? It does give us a little bit of insight, though, into that moment. Like, I wondered what Gannon had said to DiMercato there. It obviously did, cost Arizona a football game in a division that they cannot afford. But that is an interesting one.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
Are we going to sit here today and acknowledge that the Indianapolis Colts right now are the best team in the AFC?
They are right now.
They can run the football with Taylor. They got a competent quarterback, the way he's playing right now, in Daniel Jones. They are well coached.
They never punt.
They never punt.
They never punt.
The Craig Carton Show, only on SportsGrid.
Let's start in the Atlantic, where the New York Knicks are minus 250 favorites to win the Atlantic Division. Philadelphia 76ers are plus 490. Boston 8-1. Toronto 13-1. Brooklyn 25-1. And it could be 250,000-1. They're not winning the division.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
Leighton just told us they need 6 innings from Brian Wu. Seattle does in the ALCS off of injury, off of a pec issue. So we'll see if that comes true. But we do want to talk bullpens real quick here in segment 3. Jack McMullen, Aram Leighton again. And we'll start with Seattle, because even if Wu doesn't go 6, if he can go 5, if he can go 4, they can mix and match their way through with their big 4 in the bullpen. Andres Munoz, one of the best closers in baseball. Matt Brash, one of the nastiest in baseball. Gabe Spire, left on left, is a nightmare. And Eduard Bizardo is very, very good. And we learned that in Game 5 of the ALDS, if you are just getting your first look at Eduard Bizardo. I said this on our show on Sunday night. This bullpen trio of Spire, Brash, Munoz, and then Bizardo is kind of the fourth. Feels very night shifty, the 2021 Atlanta Braves, where you had AJ Minner, Luke Jackson, Tyler Matzik, and Will Smith. Like, they just got the Braves through that 21 postseason. It's not the high octane level that the 2015 Royals were, but it feels like that 21 Braves where it's like, okay, you know what? Game is over, especially when you get to Brash and Munoz.
Yeah, I'd walk it back. Like, maybe I'll say they need 5+. But I think the big reason why I'm saying that too is I think Spire is just running out of gas a little bit here. I do wonder if it's just catching up to him some. And I know he pitched a clean inning on the 12th, but 3 consecutive outings as we're recording this without a K. The stuff just didn't look as sharp. And if Spire is slowing down a little bit now, okay, it's Bizardo, Brash, Munoz. Like those guys a lot. I think their bullpen's in a pretty decent spot. But if you want to mix and match from the 5th inning onward or early 6th inning onward, I'm just interested. Like, is Spire going to continue to be that guy for you? If Spire isn't throwing extremely well, like Ferguson's your only other guy to go get lefties, I don't know how much I trust him. So this bullpen's great. I think when you can go from Brash to Munoz, it's awesome. And Bizardo's had some good moments, but I think he's also battled a bit at points. I'm just interested in who that third guy is going to be. I felt really confident about it being Spire earlier in the postseason. The last few outings, I just wonder if he's running out of gas a bit.
Toronto. Do you have confidence in anybody in that bullpen right now?
No, because I'm like splitting hairs with this Mariners bullpen where with Munoz and Brash, I feel really good if they can just get to that, get through that 7th inning. And even then, like Spire and Bizardo have been effective. The Blue Jays in terms of trust, no, but I still think they can do it. Hoffman, I thought, looked really good last time out. He's obviously the big X factor because he has not had a great year at all. But, I do trust Varland, and I think he's been effective. I think what they've been getting out of Lauer has been absolutely impressive as well, in different roles. I think he's been just a huge equalizer for them in kind of a Brewers type of role. So I do really trust Lauer in the way that they've deployed him. And again, I think Varland has been really effective in the way that they've used him.
Gotcha. Let's go to the LA Dodgers here real quick. The Dodgers, it's a different looking bullpen. And I mentioned the only guys to make multiple relief appearances for the Dodgers across that 4-game series win in the DS. Emmett Sheehan, Alex Vesia, Roki Sasaki, and I'm missing one more, Blake Trinan. Trinan struggled. It is a short bullpen. But what we have learned is that they have spawned a closer and probably the best reliever left in this playoff, except for Andres Munoz in Roki Sasaki right now. What is making him so unhittable at this very moment?
The velo. I mean, and it's what we always talk about. It's all about the velo with Roki Sasaki, because people might say, oh, well, 98 plays, right? 97 plays. Yeah, but not when it's straight as an arrow and it's 2 pitches, right? But when it's 100 and the best pitch off of that is a splitter that is most effective by being set up by the fastball, the fact that he can be up in velocity and be sitting closer than 99, 100, like at his best points in Japan, he was always sitting north of 99. That really does make all the difference, as crazy as it may sound to people, is when now hitters have to really respect that fastball and they're really sped up by it. That splitter is going to play way better. But I think beyond that, it's also the command of it. You look at his last 4 appearances, he's thrown 31 4-seamers, and 28 of them have been strikes.
Love it. We got about a minute left. I want to talk about Milwaukee here, because Milwaukee has an all-star closer in Trevor McGill that was an opener. Aaron Ashby, very good left on left. Lefty can get it up to 99 miles an hour. Abner Uribe, phenomenal. And then you've got these long men. Like Mizorowski can go long. He just went 4 great innings in Game 5 on Saturday night. You've got Chad Patrick as well. Is this Brewer bullpen the best one left?
I think because of the way that you can weaponize different guys in different ways, yes, but also I feel like they're giving something up in the rotation to strengthen the bullpen, so it's a little unfair. But even without that, I mean, obviously comfortably better than the Blue Jays and anything. But when you compare it to maybe the leverage arms of the Mariners, like it can even out. But then you add that in with the rotation, you say, okay, well, maybe I'd prefer the Mariners situation. But I think with a good manager and a guy that has a great feel, this is actually an asset. We talk about the Tigers bullpen chaos and things like that. This is like that scenario, but with way better bullets in the chamber. And with Patrick touching 98 in shorter spurts, but a guy that you can also stretch out to multi-innings, having 3-4 different lefties that you can go to out of that pen as well. The way that they can mix and match in different ways is just an absolute edge, I think, especially when you trust your manager's decision-making.
That, folks, was your roster preview of the CS. We're going to get to the Tigers in a moment, but quick break.
Football contest season is back, and so is the Las Vegas Football Contest Show. Season 2, the sharpest football contest show in the land. Focusing on all 3 Circus Sports contests and the Westgate Superbook Super Contest, we handicap the games and release our contest picks every week of the season. Featuring Super Contest champions Brady Cannon, James Salinas, and former NFL player Mike Pritchard, all team will have you prepared this season like none other. Check us out every weekend right here on SportsGrid.
You may be surprised, because I am, that the athlete in the world who has become the first billionaire is Cristiano Ronaldo. I did not know that, and I did not have that on my bingo card. So after his contract that he just signed, it means that he's the first athlete to ever earn $1 billion playing sports.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
This one's for you, Tommy Reynolds. I know you're a Rochester Americans guy, but the big team, the Buffalo Sabres, at home against the listless Rangers. Can we get plus 102? We can in overtime. Snuggaroo does it again. Buffalo over the Rangers.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
I told you Vladimir Guerrero would hit a home run. He hits a home run on his first pitch. 2-run shot, 2-0 Jays. And I gave you Suarez earlier. I'm telling you, Scott, Contreras last night, Story the other night. Bro, every night I've been hitting these home run props. And not the easy Ohtani ones at old plus 190.
Right.
These are plus 450s, baby.
In-game live, only on SportsGrid.
Baseball show, Jack McMullen, Aram Leighton. We just gave you the roster rundown of each of these 4 teams remaining in the championship series, the Dodgers, the Brewers, the Blue Jays, and the Seattle Mariners. Now we want to talk about a team that was bounced in the 15th inning on Friday night, the Detroit Tigers. The Detroit Tigers held their end-of-season media availability on Monday, and we learned a couple of things. Number one, we learned that the manager of the Tigers, A.J. Hinch, agreed to a multi-year extension earlier in the season. So A.J. Hinch is here for the long run. We also heard some really interesting things from Scott Harris, who's the head baseball decision maker for the Tigers. I don't know if he's the GM or the president of baseball operations. They kind of do the same darn thing. But Scott Harris talked about maybe the lack of big fish landing that they did at the trade deadline. And he made the point that he does not regret not landing that big fish at the trade deadline. He is very comfortable holding on to the roster that was a game away, an inning, a swing away from the ALCS, while also maintaining one of the best farm systems in Major League Baseball right now. He alluded to the possibility of acquiring a rental for somebody who actually turned in a worse back 2 months than the player that would have been going back to that team from the Detroit Tigers, and they were also asking for more prospect capital there. I want to start on the Scott Harris side, and then we'll get to A.J. Hinch. This guy clearly has a vision and a 5-year, 10-year plan for the Detroit Tigers, and I feel like he's almost stubborn in a good way, that he will stick to that plan. He's not going to push the chip forward if it's a total gamble. Like, he feels really good about the direction of the Detroit Tigers right now.
Yeah. Yeah, and I appreciate him like being out front about it and answering candidly. You know, I think a lot of times you get just so much of the GM speak, and you know, it was at least I think made it easier to understand why they approach it that way, because you can also look at a lot of the deadline acquisitions that didn't go great. And I think it was the speculation was like, oh, maybe that was Gino Suarez, and oh, well, who was the player that they would have moved the other way that they said had a better second half? I'm like thinking, oh, well, if it was Gino, they probably would have wanted a pitcher. Would that have been like Melton going the other way? Because I imagine that would be one of the top names that the Diamondbacks would have been asking for. Like, then it makes sense to hold pat. I think where I was surprised, though, was like, oh, well, why not go get, you know, another starting pitcher to bolster this thing? But at the same time, they would have to give up, you know, some crazy prospect capital, which is a lot of the reason why we saw these controllable pitchers not get moved. So tough spot. You know, I would have liked to see them be a little bit more aggressive on the bullpen or whatever it may be, but I think it's very clear that Scott Harris has his eyes on building a long-term contender here and a team that's going to continue to develop talent from within and replenish the big leagues, and they don't want to trade from that too much. We saw that, I think, with the way that they've been able to build this farm system, but I still think they're really fascinating because you can't just count on all of these guys to come up and make your team better at the big league level, and you just were a game away, you know, really as close as humanly possible, again, from getting to get to the ALCS. And you got to look and say, well, what's going to push us over, you know, to the next step here? How do we get, you know, a little bit closer to the World Series? And I think it's got to be a tangible change at the big league level, especially when you look at Skubal and say, well, I hope we can bring him back, but if we can't, we don't have that much longer with him, you know, on a cheap deal. That's where I feel like you need to see a little bit more urgency from them, whether it's on the spending front or if it's making another trade this year. But I can respect at least not forcing it if they didn't feel like there was something there at the deadline.
And frankly, I can appreciate if Scott Harris sees a clearer picture during the offseason than at the trade deadline. The deadline is really tough, and I feel like the deadline is for the teams that are ready to go all in and deplete their farm to a certain extent or take away some key pieces from that farm, where you can be much more measured during the offseason. And frankly, the pool is bigger. Like, you can talk to contenders about swapping. You can talk to teams at the bottom of the league about swapping.
The Cubs got Kyle Tucker, man. Like, that's better
Cubs
than any
Kyle Tucker from Houston.
Deadline acquisition.
Yeah, I mean, that guy would literally never be available at the deadline. You're plucking from the bottom 6, 7, 8 teams in Major League Baseball at the trade deadline versus having conversations with 29 other franchises over the course of the offseason. They also have the benefit of having an incredibly deep farm system in the offseason.
Which I think is why we had some of the frustration. Again, I still think they could have pushed on the bullpen a little bit more, but maybe they knew what they had with Melton. And, with the offensive side of things, it was tough. Like, if it wasn't Gino, like, who else could they have gone and targeted? So I get it. And I think maybe you can make that similar conversation with the Cubs. But again, I think with them, maybe pushing the chips a little bit more forward for pitching would have made more sense beyond this year as well.
Sure.
But, we'll see if either of those teams try to address that this offseason. I'm just really interested by the big league team right now. You look at it, there's a lot of solid players complimenting, but like, you need to get better. How do you get better? I think the shortstop position's obviously where you look, but that's not a very easy position to address either. So, and you also have McGonigal coming up. Does he end up playing second? Do you bring Glaber back? Like, I think there's a lot of fascinating wrinkles within this Tigers, because you could also see this team, you could do nothing and they actually are a step back next year, just naturally, because you don't get quite the dominance from Skubal, let's say, or maybe, you lose Flaherty, or Flaherty doesn't throw as well, even though he wasn't great. You lose Glaber. McKinstry isn't an all-star. Like, I'm interested to see how they can ensure that they can get back to where they were and then at least, there, and then maybe push beyond that.
So I will say priority one for me would be making sure that Gleyber Torres remains in a Tiger uniform. And I know that, McGonigal is probably the second baseman of the future, but he's playing shortstop all the time in the minor leagues. Like, why not just try it? And if you have an average shortstop defender with a great bat in McGonigal as soon as he comes up, I think you stomach that.
As opposed to what? Going to pay Bichette, who can't defend anyway?
Right, exactly. So it's like, okay, have McGonigal play short, and maybe in 5-6 years you move him back over to second base, or maybe in 3-4 years you move him over to second base. But I think Gleyber Torres remaining in Detroit is priority one. Priority two is going to get another starting pitcher on the heels of Tarek Skubal, whether that's Dylan Cease or Zach Gallen or Framber Valdez or Michael King. There are guys out there for Detroit to pursue. And if you can create, instead of Skubal followed by Flaherty, Mize, Olsen, you have Skubal and Cease followed by Flaherty, Mize, Olsen. That's an entirely different level to the Detroit Tigers. They need a good starting pitcher, and they need Gleyber Torres to remain in that uniform. We know that AJ,
No, I was just saying I agree with that, and that's one where, like, you may underestimate the value of a Gleyber, you lose him, and then it's like, oh man, our offense is a little bit tough. The other thing is, like, some of these positionless, like, are just not defensively oriented guys, like a Colt Keith, and then they have Jace Young in AAA, like Justin Henry Malloy. So a lot of guys that are stuck in limbo, and Keith has obviously had a nice year. And I was really excited with what he did, but hurt at the end of the year. I think he still earned himself a spot, but the guys behind him, like, you got to figure out what you're going to do there. I just feel like that's not good 40-man usage there as well. So I just feel like they got to make some sort of trades this offseason as well, just to supplement some of this. I think they're going to be busy. I really do.
And they've got guys that plenty of teams would be interested in. We know that AJ Hinch is going to be the skipper for them moving forward. Again, sign a multi-year contract extension over the course of the 2025 season. It was at some point in the 25 season, but it is for the foreseeable future. AJ Hinch is the guy in Detroit. I have zero qualms with this. This guy has proven year over year that he is one of the best managers in Major League Baseball, maybe the best manager in Major League Baseball. Like, I have no opinion on this. It's just good for them. They have their guy moving forward.
Well, that's why I think it's exciting. Like, they have the core, they have the manager, they have the best pitcher on the planet for my money, and they have a great farm system. So what are the little things you can do to – okay, I think you're set up for long-term success now. You're set up to be a good team for a long time. But now how do you take the next step forward? How do you get to the World Series? And I think it's that one or two moves for that big league team. I think it's breaking out the checkbook. I really do. For one of these starting pitchers, and not being afraid to maybe overpay or whiff or whatever. Even in Imai coming over from MVP, like, that's a guy that's worth taking a shot on. But I think Cease is a perfect fit for them, where big ballpark, maybe the home run ball doesn't burn him as much, and go spend that money. You have a core and you have a lot of good prospects. You won't have to spend a ton of money moving forward.
We've got about 40 seconds here. I do want to throw you one or two more names here that could be interesting for them. I feel like they could use some more bullpen help. And I know that bullpen chaos has been their thing, but why can't Devin Williams rebound in Detroit? Like, that kind of guy, that kind of acquisition makes a lot of sense to me. Why can't Ryan Helsley rebound in Detroit. The closer market is interesting for guys that would be signing one-year deals. That feels like a way that they could get involved. But really curious to see how this shakes out in Detroit. But we heard A.J. Hinch is the man moving forward, and Scott Harris had some good points as well. We do know that one guy's not going back to San Diego. Talk about that in a moment.
Have you been watching Tua Tagovailoa's post-game press conferences where he basically like, yeah, I'm getting paid, deal with it. By the way, how's the team? Nobody shows up to meetings, players-only meetings, people skip out. Nobody cares around here, and we lost again. Tua threw 3 interceptions. Yes, he's part of the problem. James Franklin got fired from Penn State, we'll talk about later. When is McDaniels getting shown the door? This team is ridiculous, Joe.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Basically a year's worth of starts at this point, because remember, Drake May was not the starter out of the gate during his rookie year last year. That was Jacoby Brissett. There have been some, encouraging performances and, I think some flashes of what could be upper echelon talent within the scope of the league. But going into this year, it was, we're going to find out.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
I told you Vladimir Guerrero would hit a home run. He hits a home run on his first pitch. 2-run shot, 2-0 Jays. And I gave you Suarez earlier. I'm telling you, Scott, Contreras last night, Story the other night. Bro, every night I've been hitting these home run props. And not the easy Ohtani ones at old plus 190. Right. These are plus 450s, baby.
In-game live, only on SportsGrid.
Are we going to sit here today and acknowledge that the Indianapolis Colts right now are the best team in the AFC?
They are right now.
They can run the football with Taylor. They got a competent quarterback, the way he's playing right now, in Daniel Jones. They are well coached.
They never punt.
They never punt.
They never punt.
The Craig Carton Show, only on SportsGrid.
Carousel. We've got A.J. Hinch staying put. We've got Rob Thomson in Philadelphia staying put. We'll talk about that in the next segment to wrap up the show. But we heard that Mike Shuldt is retiring as the manager of the San Diego Padres. News was broken by Kevin Acee of the San Diego Union Tribune. And I want to read you this whole letter from Mike Shuldt. And this was published by Kevin Acee. It is with a heavy but full heart that I'm announcing my retirement from managing the San Diego Padres. It's a decision that I thought about during the season and became at peace with over the last 10 days. He announced his retirement on October 13th. I gave every fiber of my being to help achieve Peter Seidler's vision of bringing a World Series championship to San Diego. Fell short of the ultimate goal, but I'm proud of what the players, staff, and organization were able to accomplish the last 2 seasons. The grind of the baseball season has taken a severe toll on me, mentally, physically, and emotionally. While it has always been about serving others, it's time I take care of myself and exit on my terms. Extremely appreciative to the Padres, Peter Seidler, the Seidler family, Eric Grupner, AJ Preller, and staff for the trust and confidence to lead this team. I'm confident I left things in a better place. And then he keeps on going there. 34 years of coaching and managing for Mike Shuldt at the professional level. Spent the last 2 years as the skipper of the San Diego Padres. This guy was a very good manager in St. Louis. He was, I thought, wrongly let go. I thought there was 0 point for St. Louis to move on from Mike Shuldt when they did. Mike Shuldt was a heck of a manager in San Diego. Good for him for just kind of realizing the priorities over his life right now and getting out right now. He would have had a job moving forward. There's no doubt in my mind about that. I really don't think this had anything to do with the Padres falling short and losing in the wild card round. I think this is just baseball's hard. 162 and being there for 30 spring training games is really hard. And Mike Shuldt was ready to move on.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything you could point to in particular that, he could have done substantially better. Maybe bunts a little bit more than I like, but, I think this really was just he's had a really long professional career. And then this may have been the job that may have been best for him when he was really just trying to get going in his professional, maybe in his managerial career, even a few years ago. This is an exhausting gig, I'd imagine, in San Diego, where it's win now, always. And I don't I won't pretend to know AJ Preller, but I think it's quite visible through the transactions that there's a level of urgency. And I think especially the last 2 years where he knows like, he's got to do something. There's the financial urgency side of it as well, because of how much this team invests in success, but also then the trade capital urgency and how much they've always been in win now mode that I imagine has to seep down to the manager's office, to the clubhouse and beyond. And if you're a guy that already is like, man, I'm feeling the grind after all these years, I can't imagine how exhausting that San Diego gig must have been this year and just in the last couple of years. That's as, I think, stressful as an environment as there probably is in terms of we got to do it now and we haven't been able to.
Which is funny because it's probably the most stressful job in San Diego, California. That place is paradise, and you can make stress out of paradise. There's no doubt about that. It is a unique situation in Major League Baseball because they're always hyper competitive. They haven't reached the mountaintop, but they pursue that mountaintop every year. And there's some roster turnover, right? There's some continuity. I mean, Manny Machado has been there. We know Fernando Tatis has been there and will continue to be there. There are some pitchers that have been there.
Ain't going anywhere anytime soon.
Right. Like, there are guys, there are building blocks. But when the complementary pieces change all the time like this, that has to increase the stress level there. And I just wonder, San Diego, like, what do they do moving forward? Do they want someone like Bruce Bochy to come in? And this is like their humongous push towards a World Series. Bruce wants a third different team. He wants to guide a third different team to a World Series championship. Or do they go with somebody like a Hundley, who is a San Diego guy who is interviewing for this managerial opening in San Francisco right now? Do they go with someone younger? Do they elevate somebody like Ruben Niebla? I don't know, man. It's interesting, and I have no idea the direction that San Diego wants to go.
And I think it'll be telling based on the hire. And I'm very interested because this front office, I don't feel like is as much of and they all are, but as much as a hands-on, like, I want to control everything that's kind of planned out for the game as much. Like, I feel like they've gone with the more veteran managers for that reason, where it's like, okay, we're going to put the best team we can humanly possible put on the field. And it's in your hands now. And so that's why I always feel like they skew towards the vet manager.
Yeah.
But maybe they switch it up now. And maybe that was something that pushed Shuldt out this year. Like, I always think about that is, more tenured managers that are running out of gas a little bit in the evolving landscape of the hierarchy and structure of these organizations is you have a lot more meetings and a lot more people suggesting how you should do your job. And if I'm already getting burnt out, I don't know if I could deal with that. And I just wonder with this urgency in San Diego, if maybe this is a front office that's looking to get a little bit more hands-on.
I would be curious, and if I were to guess, I would assume to a certain degree, yes, that would be the case, and we will see how that looks. In terms of offseason wish list for San Diego, I don't really know what it is because obviously they have a lot of guys hitting the open market right now. They grabbed a rental in Ryan O'Hearn. Obviously, Ramon Laureano is still there. Mason Miller is there to stay. I just wonder how this team gets better given the financial constraints that they have. San Diego is a fascinating offseason to me. There are a couple of fascinating off seasons to me. Detroit's one of them. San Diego's another one of them. And we're going to talk about Philly in about 90 seconds. And I mean, the Philadelphia Phillies are a fascinating offseason to me as well. San Diego, do you have like a priority one for them?
Honestly, no, because I don't really know what their approach is going to be into this offseason. And is it going to continue to be push the chips forward, or is the day of reckoning finally coming where it's like, we got to clear some money and we got to figure this thing out? And if that is the case, maybe that's why Shuldt was like, I don't know if I can do this. Like, this might've been our best shot. So I don't know. And I think if that is the case though, maybe a younger guy, internal promotion, something like that may end up making more sense because they've gone older vet, the last couple times, and not for any specific reason, but here we are talking about another manager search.
I will say it feels impossible to hit the soft rebuild button with Manny Machado, Tatis, Merrill on this team.
I agree.
Like, they're going to keep going for it, I feel like, over the next 2-3 years. And what does that level of going for it look like? I have no idea, but curious to find out, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, I think there'll be some reshuffling, but still in the name of going for it, obviously. You don't make that Mason Miller trade if you're not planning to go for it next year, too.
Right, 100%. So we will see what the San Diego Padres want to do. I'm really curious to see what the Philadelphia Phillies want to do. They retain Rob Thomson. We're going to talk about that in depth in a moment. As always, this is the Just Baseball Show. We gave you the ALCS, NLCS rundown. We're going to wrap it up with Rob Thomson and Phillies talk. Next, you're listening to the Just Baseball Show and watching it on SportsGrid.
Well, maybe that Chiefs dynasty is actually crumbling. And listen, I don't blame you for that, but you would be wrong. Here's what actually happened in that game last night. See, the Kansas City Chiefs dominated the Jacksonville Jaguars pretty much up and down that field. They outgained them, Donnie. You ready by this? By over 150 yards of offense.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Basically a year's worth of starts at this point, because remember, Drake May was not the starter out of the gate during his rookie year last year. That was Jacoby Brissett. There have been some, encouraging performances and, I think some flashes of what could be upper echelon talent within the scope of the league. But going into this year, it was, we're going to find out.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
I told you Vladimir Guerrero would hit a home run. He hits a home run on his first pitch. 2-run shot, 2-0 Jays. And I gave you Suarez earlier. I'm telling you, Scott, Contreras last night, Story the other night. Bro, every night I've been hitting these home run props. And not the easy Ohtani ones at plus 190. Right. These are plus 450s, baby.
In-game live, only on SportsGrid.
Are we going to sit here today and acknowledge that the Indianapolis Colts right now are the best team in the AFC?
They are right now.
They can run the football with Taylor. They got a competent quarterback, the way he's playing right now, in Daniel Jones. They are well coached.
They never punt.
They never punt.
They never punt.
The Craig Carton Show, only on SportsGrid.
Baseball show wrapping up here. Jack McMullen, Aram Leighton. We just talked about AJ Hinch getting his extension. We talked about Mike Shuldt retiring. And now I want to talk about Rob Thomson, who is being retained for 2026. There was some conversation about the Phillies and this possibly being their last dance in 2025. They've got some guys that hit free agency. JT Realmuto, Kyle Schwarber hits free agency. Ranger Suarez is a free agent as well. They've got plenty of guys that are going to test the open market. They have a lot of questions that need to be answered, and this really felt like it was Philadelphia's best opportunity to win the World Series. They fall in 4 in the NLDS to the Dodgers, and all of a sudden there were questions about Rob Thomson coming back. And I understand that this is a certain level of failure this year for the Philadelphia Phillies because they won the National League East. They were the second best team in the National League, and they had World Series aspirations, and they fell short of that. But I found that whole conversation to be a little weird. And the fact that they retain him is like, okay, good move. I would extend a guy like Thomson. I think you just won back-to-back NL East titles. I have no idea why the questioning around Rob Thomson was negative. Hey, what do you think? Should the Phillies bring him back? To Bryce Harper, to Realmuto, to Schwarber, to Stott? Like, all these guys answered questions about Rob Thomson right after they got bounced by the Dodgers. I just found that bizarre.
Yeah, and teams don't really like operating with a lame duck manager anymore. I think one other team that I can think of that's doing it right now going into next year is the Diamondbacks with Torey Lovullo, and that makes more sense, right? Because you want to give him the benefit of the doubt.
Sure.
Yeah, it was a lot of injuries, stuff like that, but there's been some streakiness the last couple of years, and they want to wait, and we'll see what happens this year. Maybe even midseason they can extend him. But with the Phillies situation, like you said, they've won the division and they're consistently great in the regular season. And I don't think you can look at Rob Thomson and say there's something he could have done in this postseason to push this team across the finish line. You could look at maybe the Nick Castellanos lack of communication between him and Castellanos, but that seemed like an isolated issue, right? Like it didn't seem like something that affected his relationship with Thompson's relationship with other players. It didn't seem like it was something that affected Castellanos' relationship with his teammates. Like it was just one of those where you're not going to see eye to eye with every single player. And I think a lot of people could understand why Castellanos was phased out of the situation a little bit anyways. It's just a tough spot to be. But other than that, the whole talk, even since he took over as interim and eventually got the gig, is that he's been the right guy for this ball club and for this group. And I don't really see that changing. But I think it's weird when this team probably has, and it's already going to look different, but again, another team that you're not going to fully rebuild, already has a couple more years of shelf life of really going for it. Like, are you really going to have a new manager with this group anyways? And I know you may lose a couple guys, but we imagine Schwarber's going to come back, but let's say he doesn't. Yeah. Even with the Turner, Harper, Nola, just grouping there,
Wheeler,
March, you're going to just drop in a totally new manager. What's that going to fix? I think giving a little bit more consistency and continuity, especially as maybe Schwarber doesn't sign, maybe they trade Bohm. I think it would be good to show that, hey, we have Rob for more than a year and we don't have Rob managing for his job in 26. I don't know. I'm not a huge fan of that. And Dave Dombrowski has a great feel for these things, so I trust they'll figure it out. But I don't know. I just find it interesting.
This is the closest we could get to a contender tearing it down after winning the division. And again, I understand that the NLDS did not go their way, and this postseason as a whole did not go their way, and that can be a failure in Phillies land. But I don't it feels weird to say, okay, we're going to change the fabric of this organization. And obviously they're not doing it on the managerial side, but I'm with you. It feels like you could have offered him a 2-year extension. Instead, you're retaining him for 26, which feels like, okay, you got to prove it again. The Castellanos thing, just tying a bow on that, it's really hard to tell a $20 million player and $100 million in total contract value player that
and
he's
just a well-respected player.
Yeah, well-respected player. It's really hard to tell him, hey, you're not performing, so we're not going to play you. And that's delicate, and Castellanos, deservedly so, has an ego now that goes with being a $20 million player, and that's a really hard pill to stomach. So I understand why there could be some confusion there. But I don't know, there are questions surrounding Bohm. There are questions surrounding plenty of people on that roster, but you do know that you have some pillars moving forward. Christopher Sanchez at the front of that rotation. We see Nola and Wheeler, to your point, Harper and Turner. There's enough to like here, and there's enough to keep pursuing it with Philadelphia. Priority one is retaining Schwarber, obviously, but I don't know. We've got about 45 seconds here, and then we'll wrap. How much change do you truly see happening in Philly land this offseason?
Well, now I'm thinking maybe a little bit more than we expect, because I think they're maybe going to go into this year, just it's purely speculative, but kind of not knowing what's in store for 2027 and who does. But I think teams like this, usually you think maybe, but if 2026 doesn't go well, that maybe this is a team that starts to look a lot younger in 2027 and beyond. And you don't want to have a multi-year contract for a manager who probably won't want to be on hand for that whole new situation. So that's the one thing I'm thinking a little bit of, but I think I might also be just overthinking it too.
That's our program. Thank you guys so much for joining us. We'll talk to you next week on SportsGrid.
Hopefully these go better. I'm smashed before 1 on these games. I cannot believe that this game destroyed me. Why did I get involved live? That's on me, not
That
you.
is on you.
All right,
that's on you.
You didn't have to run up the score. I said it was on me.
It was on you.
Right.
You just didn't see the writing on the wall. Knee it! Let's get out of Dodge!
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
Can I get an ISO? Come on. Give me the ISO over here.
Give
right
me the
here.
ISO. He wants the camera.
Look, I'm going to get nice and comfortable right now. I've been telling you people out there, yes, you people, about the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. My connection to the Irish growing up as a kid. I hated that team. But they called me at the network the most unbiased man here, which means I'm giving you the information straight from the mouth here. You don't have to go anywhere. You get it from me.
SportsGrid's College Football Today.
You're looking at Joe Burrow being the guy that I was in on the beginning of the year. Clearly, that is no longer an option. So where are we looking on this board? And I keep landing on the same thing, which is, Baker Mayfield's been kind of the story this year. Think about this. He's plus 950 for MVP. They look like right now one of the, if not the most formidable team in the NFC.
Fantasy Sports Today, only on SportsGrid.
I apologize to our fans. We need to do better. That's all you need to say, Scott, right? But Tua goes out there, my kids love me, I'm rich, I don't care. You got your dumbass coach coming out here, and we play to win. You got to win the game, and you got to win. And, dude, the Dolphins press conferences make it way worse. If I was a Dolphin fan, I just want to punch these guys in the face.
In-game live, only on SportsGrid.